hopefully from last class, you guys watched this video about some of the extinct animals. I'm going to go through a few of the ones that maybe they didn't mention or ones that are more memorable or more more well-known animals. And then we'll move on to kind of look at trends. So there's the West African black rhino. The West African black rhino is a subspecies of the black rhino that was declared extinct in 2011. This subspecies last existed in Cameroon, but an extensive survey in 2006 did not find any signs of living West African black rhinos. And according to one of the communities or unions that take a look at animals and extinctions, they said it is highly probable that this subspecies is now extinct thanks to increased poaching and demand for the rhino horn. Which, fun fact, the rhino horn is actually not made out of ivory, it's made out of keratin, and which is just what our hair and nails are made out of, mostly our fingernails. So they're actually poaching it for the horn, but it's not really even what they're looking for. Next is our golden toad. The golden toad is not the only species to disappear in the last 40 years, so in 1989, but it might just be the brightest. It was a very bright toad, obviously the name golden toad. The fluorescent amphibian was found in high altitude regions of Costa Rica, but thanks to pollution, global warming, and just they get a fungal skin infection on the toad's skin, the species became extinct in 1989. This one was mentioned in the video. I'll just tell you the story of it quick though, because they just kind of mentioned it as an honorable mention in the video. The story of the passenger pigeon is quite tragic, actually. And as recently as around 200 years ago, they weren't anywhere near extinction. Like the video said, there were huge flocks of them that were flying around. They were actually the most common bird in North America, and some reports counted single flocks numbering in the billions. The pigeon meat was eventually commercialized and recognized as cheap food, especially for slaves and poor people, which led to the hunting campaign on a massive scale. So hundreds of these birds were hunted. Furthermore, due to the large size of their flocks, the birds were seen as a threat to farmers, so farmers weren't a fan. And the last passenger pigeon, named Martha, died alone at the Cincinnati Zoo at actually about 1 p.m. on September 1st, 1914. There's this Dutch Alcon blue butterfly that went extinct around 1979. And I know a lot of people or past classes have asked, how do you know if a butterfly or an insect goes extinct, because they're so small and they could be living in all different places in the world or in the area. There's actually people that go out and survey and ecologists that look at species and they kind of track them and look for specific species. And we'll also get to that question a little bit later in this unit, but just keep that in mind. Keep thinking about how can you find out if something so small like a ladybug or a butterfly goes. But the story about this Dutch Alcon blue butterfly is it's a subspecies of just the Alcon blue. It was found mainly in the grasslands of the Netherlands out in Europe, and it is closely related species. This one, the one pictured here. So closely related species still exist in parts of Europe and Asia, but the last actual Dutch Alcon blue was seen in the wild in 1979. The cause of extinction, they believe, is an increase in farming and building, taking away their habitat and having a negative impact on their habitat and caused it to lose its main source of food. So the flowers that were being taken down for farming and building buildings, they could no longer have their food. The next one is the ibex. It's a Pyrenean ibex, has one of another more interesting story among some of these extinct animals. It was the first species to ever be brought back into existence via cloning, but it went extinct again just 7 minutes after being born due to a lung failure. The Pyrenean ibex was native to the Pyrenees Mountains in Andorra, France, and Spain, and it was abundant in the 14th century. The Pyrenean ibex population declined due to a slow but continuous persecution and disappeared from the French Pyrenees and eastern mountain ranges by the mid-19th century. Its situation has been critical since the beginning of the 20th century, when it was estimated that the Pyrenees population in Spain numbered at only about 100 individuals of these ibex. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the population never rose above 40 individuals. And then finally, in 1981, the population was reported to be at about 30 individuals. And at the end of the 1980s, the population size was estimated at only 6 to 14 of them. The last naturally born ibex was named Celia and died on January 6, 2000, after being found dead under a fallen tree at the age of 13. The animal's only companion, the one that Celia, her only companion had died just a year earlier due to old age. So basically their numbers dwindled down, and then finally the last ones that they knew about had gone or died, and then they became extinct. You guys probably know about the Spix macaw. If you guys have seen Rio, it's kind of the one. I haven't seen Rio, but I've heard whenever I put this picture up, everybody's like, oh, it's like the bird in Rio. So the Spix macaw is also called the little blue macaw. It was known for its beautiful blue feathers. It kind of looks gray in this picture, but down by the wing, you can see that there's more blue feathers. While some still exist in captivity, these tiny blue birds are extinct in the wild. Their causes of extinction are believed to be habitat destruction and illegal trapping and trade, cause the numbers to dwindle down in the wild, and why they're only alive in captivity now. Then we only have like 3 more. Then there's the Carolina parakeet. It was native to the eastern Midwest and the plain states of the United States, so kind of where we live. And it was the only indigenous parrot within this range. So, I mean, if you think about it, we don't go into the woods and find parrots often. It was found all the way from New York to Wisconsin to Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Gulf of Mexico, all the way to the Atlantic seaboard and as far west as eastern Colorado. So it's kind of all over North America. It lived in the old growth forests along rivers and swamps. And it was prevalent all throughout this range. The bird had become rare by the middle of the 19th century, and the last confirmed sighting in the wild was in about 1910. The last known specimen or actual alive Carolina parakeet died in captivity in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1918, and the species was then declared extinct officially in 1939, but in around 1918, that was when the last one died. Also, fun fact, Carolina parakeets were probably poisonous, and American naturalist and painter noted that cats apparently would die from eating parakeets. So if you do have a cat that would go outside and its birds, cats would actually die from hunting this bird because it was poisonous. The sea cow was in the video. So sea cows used to graze on kelp in the Bering Sea. It was a smaller manatee. It's not smaller. I'm sorry. I misread that. It was a relative of the smaller manatee. Manatees are obviously smaller than the sea cow. They were over 25 feet long and may have weighed as much as 10 tons. And their population was already threatened in 1741, perhaps due to hunting by indigenous peoples, obviously for their blubber and their skins and things like that. Their extermination would quickly continue with the arrival of the Alaska-bound European fishermen and seal hunters. The sea cows were rapidly hunted for food, skins used to make boats, and oil for lamps. And by 1768, less than 30 years after they were even originally found, they actually went extinct. And our last one is the Yangtze River dolphin. It was also called the beige dolphin, which was in the video. It was declared extinct in 2006, and there was a video of what appeared to be a beige dolphin in 2007, but the species was still considered functionally extinct, meaning that if there's only a few old creatures alive, no new ones will be born because they're past the age where they can reproduce and they were no longer able to have babies. Therefore, it's functionally extinct because they're the last ones alive. So this has kind of all happened these days. So I want you to think about right now, have extinctions happened in the past? Can you maybe think of examples of species that existed long ago but have not been found around for millions of years, maybe even 100 millions of years? So if we know that the same species haven't always been around, what can we infer? What can we figure out? So I just want you to think about species maybe that have lived in the past that you've heard of. And then we're going to go back to our notes over here. So again, if you didn't write down what your definition of extinction was, please define it in your own words. But based on the video from last class or last time we talked, and based on what I told you now from these animals that have gone extinct, I want you to currently write down what is causing some of these extinctions. So I gave you guys some reasons they might be going extinct or some ideas, and just write down what you remember, and then we'll go over it in about 30 seconds. All right, so some things that got mentioned in other classes was pollution, maybe habitat loss. Like I said, with the Carolina parakeet or the butterfly. What about the sea cow? The sea cow had overhunting. The golden toad had infections or diseases. People would trade the parakeets and the macaws. I think that's really overall it. So then, if we think about what we wrote or what you guys thought of in number 3, what are some commonalities, patterns, or themes for extinction? Like, what do all of these ideas, mostly all of them, have in common? Like pollution, habitat loss, overhunting, trade. Take a moment and think about what is in common or what's a common thread or theme with all of them. Hopefully you came up with the idea that humans probably have played a role in this. So we are a cause of a lot of the pollution going on. We have been destroying habitats for farming or for industry. We are the cause of overhunting mostly. And we take animals and want to trade them or use like horns and tusks for money and investment. So human impact.